What's up guys? So today in this video I'm going to show you a basic profit and loss statement in Airtable. And if you haven't met me before, my name is Bengreen. I'm the owner of optimizeis, and what we do is we help business owners probably just like you, help them optimize their information systems. So that's stuff like Airtable for maybe asset management, Asana for project management, Slack for communication, and Zapier and Integromat to really connect all the systems together. So if you are interested in those services, you can check out the link in the description and request a consultation from me or someone on my team. But without further ado, we'll get right in the video now. So to set this up, you basically just need 3 tables. The first one is accounts payable, so this is money going out. And the second one is accounts receivable, so this is money coming in. And you could do all of this in one table. I think it just makes it really intuitive to have this in these 2 separate tables for accounts payable and accounts receivable. Now you see here, there's costs over here. So going through the accounts payable, you can see that there are many fields in here. You can see however many fields you want. You just want to keep track of your line item costs in here. So you might want to keep track of your transaction title, like what was it for? What was the amount? And then I like to have this in here. Was it an actual cost, or is it something you just want to keep track of? That way you can see how much value are you getting. So the way this formula works is if this is checked, then it is not. If it's checked, it is considered an actual cost. If it's not, then it's not considered an actual cost, and that'll be important here in a second. And you might also want to keep track of the transaction date. And then another thing you might want to keep track of is the expense type. And I'll again go into that more in the profit and loss statement. So once you do that, you're pretty much set to go. All you'll need to do is write a really simple formula that I'll show you how to do. So you want to come over here and you want to go to expense month, or you want to create a field that is a formula field and maybe title it expense month. This will just be hidden in the background. So you can come up here and you can customize this. And basically what you want to do is you want to write a concatenate formula, which pulls together some different text strings. And then you want a simple month. So if you do date time format, and then the specifier is 3 capital M's, and then a space, and then another date time format function that is the year. So if you write in that function exactly, you can go back and pause it. It'll give you this right here. And this is what you need to then link it to the expense month. So that will happen automatically. So basically what I have in here is I just have a form. And whenever I come in here, I get this form and I fill in the title, the amount, was an actual cost, transaction date, and I also can throw in any attachments in here and write any notes. And so I basically just have this attached to one of my bookmarks in Chrome, and then I can see this in here. Another view you might want to set up is for those things that are actual costs, but you're not sure what the cost is yet. Then you could put some of those in here. So for example, for me, I'm not exactly sure what some of my rent costs are going to be, because I know I can expense part of my rent for the office here, the closet. I also don't know how much I'm going to expense for tuition interest, because I don't exactly know what all the different stuff coming out on tuition interest being delayed and stuff is this year. And then also a cell phone bill, like how much of my phone am I using for my cell phone bill. So if you want to think about some of these for taxes, you can include some of that in here. And for these, again, it's just like the transaction date and all of that we went through in this first one right here. So these are different views over here on the left. These are not different tables. So these different views just give you access to different subsets of the whole table right here, the whole accounts payable table. So you can see these are like pending, because I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be putting in here. But now back to this. So this, once you set this up, you can just hide the views over here, and this is all you'll need. So before we get into the automation to link this up, I'm going to go into the accounts receivable table. So the accounts receivable table, I really like to have this connected to some automations. So this isn't necessary for you. You can manually input all of these, but I encourage you to go put some automations in here. Say, if, like for example, if you have Stripe or if you have QuickBooks, you can have some of these expenses in the accounts payable automatically come in here, especially the accounts receivable if you're invoicing, and especially if you're using some automation around invoicing, then you can easily connect it with Zapier and you can see, okay, what was created in Stripe, and then have it automatically come in here with the amount, which day it was paid, and all of that. So you can see over here we have invoices, like the invoice ID, the invoice number, and then we also have the sent date, the due date, and the pay date. And for this example, the one that you really want to be paying attention of is the pay date, because that's when we're going to say that we were paid, that we earned that money. So I'm not going to get into all the accounting on when your accounts receivable is actually able to be claimed, but that's up to you to figure out. I'm just going to be going off of this pay date, so whenever I was paid, that's when I'll count it as income. And then you want to write another one of those formulas over here. So if you come over here and we look at this month and year, we can see it's that same concatenate formula, except we're going off of pay date instead of transaction date in this, I believe. And so before I go again into that automation, if you just want to make something similar to this, that's perfect. And as you can see, here we have some statuses. So these statuses are very important because we don't want to be including in our profit and loss statement some statuses that maybe are not paid yet. So if we have an invoice that's still outstanding, obviously we haven't earned that income yet. Even if there's like a suggested pay date on there, we're not going to have that in here. So you can see like maybe you have some open invoices, and I'll show you why that's important here in a second when we go into the monthly statements, but you can see like there's a few different ones in here. And for this, I would just write a formula right here that for profit as well as unpaid amount, and say if the status is paid, then you will include the full amount of the invoice, and if it's not, then it would be 0. So just do a simple if formula there, and you can get something very similar to that, and then the inverse of that for here. So if the invoice is open, then we will include the full amount of the invoice in the unpaid amount right here, whereas if the invoice has been paid, we'll put 0. So that's really good for you if you want to be tracking what are my accounts receivable that's outstanding, as well as what's my accounts receivable that I've already collected. So once you do that, you can come over here and create another view, and you can look at pending AR. So if we click into this, we can add a filter in here where we search where the status is not paid. So that would mean we have all of these invoices right here, and you can keep track of these in here very easily based on, especially if you have automation that automatically updates it when it's paid, then you can have that right here, and you can see these are all my invoices that I need to be collecting, and all of that. So this is very easy to set up. You just add that filter there, and then I grouped it by the client just to keep track of everything a little bit easier. So now the fun part. So in this profit and loss statement, what you want to have in this primary field, which is the first field, it needs to be a unique identifier, is you want to have those calculations. So in these formulas, we have like the month and the year. So you want to be putting the equivalent of that in here, right here in months. So you can see we have like February 2021, January 2021, December 2020, and so on and so forth. And you can see it's sorted, but you might notice that there's not like a visible sorting field, so I'll show you that now. So for this, I just did some manual sorting, so every new month I'll come in here and add the next number, but you could try to set up some automation around this. I just found it easier just to set it up this way. So every month there'll be a new number in here, and this keeps it in order, and you can sort it really easy if you just add a simple number in here, and for each consecutive month you just add 1 to it. So I'll go ahead and hide that again. But now, so why this is important, why you need this as the unique identifier, is because in both of these tables, that is what you're calculating in this formula. And this formula is based on, again, this transaction date, and in accounts receivable, it's based on the pay date. So what you want to set up is you want to just set up 2 really simple automations. And so for the first one, we're going to be, I believe we're going to be looking at the accounts payable. Yes, so the accounts payable. So you want to set up the trigger as when a record matches certain conditions, and you want to choose your accounts payable table. And so I have this set up so that when the cost is checked, as well as when the transaction date is not empty. Because what's important here is if the transaction date is empty, so if I come in here to the accounts payable table and I come in here and delete, we'll copy this and then delete it. So it'll say error there. So we don't want to send a record to the profit and loss statement and link that up if it's not there. So I would just set those two simple, very simple filters there on that, and then you can test it, and then you can click done. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to update that record. So to update that record, why this is important is because we want to take what's right here and paste it essentially right here. And you could do this manually, but it's just so much simpler to set up the automation and have it running in the background. That way you can just put in your expenses and go check this when you need to, and it will all be summed up and everything for you. So the update record, you're going to choose that same table. So we're still in the accounts payable table. And what you want to do is for the record ID, you just insert the record ID from step 1 from that trigger. And then you also want to pull in the expense month link. So you're pulling in this field right here, and what you're inputting in here, I can delete this and show you, is you want to come into your record from step 1, and you want to come down here and you want to choose expense month. So you just click insert expense month, and then you can test this. So for this one, we were at computer depreciation, so that one is not yet in there, so we can now test that, and it should automatically link up for us. So I'm going to add another condition in here just to show the tutorial. I'm going to say the expense month link is empty, and we'll test that. And now once we use that test data, we can now test the action, and you can see it actually ended up, it did copy and paste that right in there just like we wanted it to. The problem was we just didn't have the right test data in here, so you can click done on both of these now, and you can turn that on. So now the second one is going to be in the accounts receivable. So for the accounts receivable, you want to set up a very similar automation. So when a record matches conditions, and for this it's important that we have the status be paid. It is for me. I think it just makes the calculating in the monthly profit and loss just that much easier. So when the status is paid, and then the second one is when the pay date is not empty. So it's the same thing as like that transaction date. So if the pay date is not empty, then this won't be calculating. It'll say that error there. So let's see if I can find one where that is all true. So we'll actually just test this, and we will also add a condition in here just to show you guys. We will say when the month link has to be empty. So now if we come in here and we say, we'll just delete this one right here. We'll delete this month link. So we can test this right here. And now we want to add essentially that same action, that same update record in the accounts receivable table with the record ID from step 1 in the automation. And then the month link is just this month and year field right here. So now we can run that test, and you can see it copied and pasted that and linked it right up. So now why is that linking so important? So if we come into the monthly profit and loss now, and we exit out of the automation, now in here we can see all of our different accounts payable, all those links in this field right here, and we can see all of our different accounts receivable in this field right here. And these are separated by month. So this gives you your monthly profits and losses, and the way you calculate those is first you want to total up your accounts payable. And then after that, you want to total up your accounts receivable. So to total up your accounts payable, what you want to do is you want to add a field maybe to the right of your accounts payable, or just add a field. And you want to make it a roll up. And then you want to add some certain conditions. So now the conditions, so we're summarizing the accounts payable, and we want to summarize the actual cost, because like I said earlier, if it's not an actual cost, we don't want to be including it. And if that was unchecked, then it wouldn't be an actual cost in here. And then you also, I would suggest coming in here and only including the linked records from the accounts payable table that meet certain conditions. So again, I just come in here and include that the cost is checked just to add some security layers in here. And then the aggregation formula, if this isn't here for you, you can just come in here and start typing sum, and then just click sum values right here. And then you can save that. So now you can see your total accounts payable, which is money that went out each month. And down here at the bottom, if you have a sum, you can see your total accounts payable that you've ever tracked. Now, for calculating your total amount accounts receivable, you want to add a very similar roll-up. So you'll have a roll-up, and then you want to be summarizing the accounts receivable linked record right here. You want to be summing up the profit. So you want to roll up the profit and then also only include linked records right here just to add another security layer. Make sure that the status is paid in those. So after you do that, you just add that simple condition and then you add that same sum values formula right here, and then you click save again. So now you have total accounts payable, total accounts receivable, and then you can write a formula to find the difference between those. So now over here for this formula, if I come in here and customize this formula, all I did was I just came in here and said total AR. So I started typing the name of that field. So total AR and then the minus sign, total accounts payable. So then you can click save there, and then that gives you this. So you can see your profits and losses for each month for as long as you've been tracking your expenses and your accounts receivable, and you can put that historical data in here as well. So if you're adding some historical data in here, which if you're creating this off the bat, you're probably doing, if you have a bunch of empty linked records over here, maybe you might take off this grouping because it's not linked up yet, and you might delete all of these. Well, you wouldn't have these here. I'll delete them so that you can see what will happen. So if I delete that and clear that, then what I would do is I would come here and click on that and then go all the way down. So I clicked on this first cell here, hold shift, hold command, and then press the down button on a Mac, and then copy that and then paste it. And it will add a record in here for that error, but I usually just go and delete that. With the automation, it won't allow you to do that because it'll stop it because it didn't match the conditions. So that's an easy way if you're importing this data. As long as you have that formula in here, you can just go and copy and paste those in here, and it will automatically link up to all of these. It won't create a bunch of new ones. So that is the simple profit and loss statement. Now, a little advanced thing for the accounts payable is we kept track of these different expense types. So if you want to be looking at your losses, you're figuring out what your expenses are every month for some of these different expense types, this will be how you do that. So if you come into your monthly profits and losses and you just create a new view in here, and you can add a field that summarizes for each of your different costs per month. So to do that, I kept the total accounts payable in here, and I kept the primary field. You can't get rid of that. And then what I did was I added a roll-up field in here that took the accounts payable and then the actual costs, but then for each different one of these, I only included records where the cost was checked and the expense type matched that certain single select field. So for the first one, it matches software and tech, and then it sums those values. For the second one, it summarizes the staff costs. For the next one, it summarizes the administrative costs there. For the other ones, it's business development. And so whatever categories you want to be classifying your expenses into, you can get a really nice profit and loss statement per month based on the type of cost here as well. So that is the basic profit and loss tutorial. Now in here, what I didn't go over was some of these if formulas. So if you want to know the if formula on the accounts receivable side, so if we come back over here and we see the unpaid amount versus profit, you can actually just go watch this video right here. If you're confused on the if statements, you can learn the conditional logic that's included with those, and you can learn all about how to use if statements in other areas of your business as well. So I highly encourage you to go check out that end screen right there, and without further ado, drop any questions in the comments section and click the link in the description if you want something similar to this basic accounting thing set up for you, this basic profit and loss. But go click that end screen right there and learn how to do that if statement.